There are thousands of men nominally belonging to our congregations who are really unfit for such membership. We should be better off. Our cause would be in a better way if they were not numbered among us. This may sound narrow, bigoted, Pharistic, but it is true. There are thousands among us, with us, but not of us, who have neither the pureness of intention, nor the strength of conviction, nor the depth of spirit to form logical and loyal devotees of so pure and lofty and spiritual a faith as Reformed Judaism. Such men have the wrongest notions of the nature of our religion. They confound it with a sort of atheism, with religious anarchy. The first best chance they get, they brag at not being religious at all. Still, they are members of our congregations. Such men have brought Reformed Judaism into disrepute. They have made it a byword amongst men. Their influence is baneful. Men of their type have always been a curse to Judaism. They are the riffraff who claim to be Jews, yet in reality, out of sympathy with the ideals and beliefs of Judaism, and by their strange position, tend to discredit Judaism in the eyes of the world. Oh, would that some strong arm had kept them out. So preached Hyman G. Enelo from his New York City pulpit in the 1930s. And about 2,000 years before Enelo preached in New York, Isaiah had his vision, Chazon Yeshayahu. I have reared my children and brought them up, and they have rebelled against me. Israel does not know. My people does not consider. Ah, sinful nation, people weighted down by iniquity, brood of evildoers, destructive children, who have forsaken the eternal, despised the Holy One of Israel, and estranged themselves from God. We read these words today, the day before Tisha B'Av. The 9th of Av is when many of our people fast in memory of the destruction of two magnificent temples destroyed in Jerusalem by the Babylonians in 586 and the Romans in 70. This Sunday, I will be at the Iraqi Jewish section of Pardes Shalom as the Dalal family unveils a monument to Na'im. And I was warned that, of course, all there will have been fasting throughout the day to mark the destruction, to mourn the destruction. And last night, Rabbi Splansky shared a story within the Ashkenazi community when Napoleon was shocked at seeing our ancestors, my ancestors, sitting on the floor in mourning for this destruction. Napoleon predicting a healing, a return because of their devotion. Tisha B'Av is often known as the saddest day on the Jewish calendar because it commemorates many tragedies which happened on this date throughout Jewish history. The First Crusade began in 1095, and thus a period of persecution and slaughter of the Jews of Europe. In 1290, an expulsion of the Jews from England. In 1492, our expulsion from Spain, the outbreak of World War I, and many moments during the Shoah. Our ancestors ask, time and again, why? The first of these askings is recorded in the Talmud about why is the first temple destroyed? Because of idolatry, bloodshed, and why the second temple? Because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. The Talmud continues with a story. The destruction of Jerusalem came through Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. You see, there was a party. A certain individual had a friend, Kamsa, and an enemy named Bar Kamsa, possibly the child of Kamsa. This gentleman said to his servant, "Go, bring my friend Kamsa to the party." But instead, the servant brought Bar Kamsa, his enemy. When this individual saw Bar Kamsa there, he approached him and said, "You tell nasty tales about me. What are you doing at my party? Get out of here." Bar Kamsa said, "Listen, since I'm here, maybe let me save a little face, and I'll pay you for whatever I eat and drink." It wasn't accepted. "Maybe let me pay for half the cost of the party." Not accepted. "Let me pay for the whole party." And with that, he was kicked out. Sitting there, he said, since the rabbis, the leaders of the Jewish community, were sitting there and witnessed this, witnessed me being put to shame in front of the community and did nothing, I will find some way of getting revenge. And thus begins the story of the downfall of the Second Temple. One important part of the story is that the rabbis had in front of them a choice: leniency or a strict interpretation of the law. And choosing the strict interpretation, Rabbi Yochanan remarks, "Through their scrupulousness, our house has been destroyed, our temple burnt, and we ourselves exiled from the land." We stand at a moment in Jewish history where our community in many ways finds itself divided. Divided over Israel, divided over how we treat one another. There was a recent rally in Washington, D.C., which was sponsored by, in part, the Reformed Jewish community. And there have been reactions from both the left and the right, decrying the rally itself, the words spoken, and seeking to find divisiveness in a moment that was supposed to be about unity. We have some who said, "I can't believe they invited so many right-wing voices." And we have others who said, "I can't believe they invited so many left-wing voices." Though the rally itself was about the shared experience of anti-Semitism and trying to bring us together. Reflecting on Tisha B'Av earlier this week, Rabbi Josh Weinberg, the director of Artza, tells a story that he was sitting this past week in Jerusalem, and there was approached by someone seeking funds, by someone experiencing homelessness possibly, who needed a little bit of help. He looked, saw that they were dressed very much like an Orthodox Jew, thought about the rallying cries against the Reform movement, thought about all the division being sown by some of the Orthodox leadership, and then looked again and saw the humanity of the person in front of him and gave tzedakah. Rabbi Amy Schneiderman tells this story. Rabbi Amy Schneiderman tells this story about the destruction of the temple. In a vote to Rabbi Natan, the rabbis are standing there by the ruined site, and Rabbi Yeshua cries out, "I'm mourning because this house is where atonement was made for Israel's sins, and it now lies in ruins." But Rabbi Yochanan answers, "We have another source of atonement. It is the practice of Gimilut Chasadim, for it says in the prophet Hosea, 'I desire loving kindness and not sacrifice.'" In a moment after the destruction of the temple, what is it that our rabbis looked for as an antidote to baseless hatred, as an antidote to over-strict interpretations of law, but loving kindness? But a way of looking at text, of wrestling with history, which allows for creativity and for love. Some read the destruction of the temple as a hiding of God's face. This is a good reading of our text. Some read the destruction of the temple and Tisha B'Av, as Isaiah does, as a lack of faith in God. This is also a good reading of the text. And the reading I want to lift up today of why was the temple destroyed is a lack of trying to come together, a lack of a search for compromise and listening. We all have our red lines and what is acceptable in Judaism on so many issues, on kashrut, on the observance of Pesach, on Israel, on Jewish status. And Tisha B'Av warns us we have to be careful of when those values drive us apart. Rabbi Stephen Wise in Oakville writes, "Judaism has the capacity to change and adapt and spread throughout the world. While we face persecution and attacks, we gain strength from our text, from our deep connection to mitzvot and moral values, and retain a connection to our ancestral homeland, finally reestablished in 1948. And he challenges us. There are many reasons to embrace and follow the traditions of this holy day of Tisha B'Av. The act of fasting and mourning honors our history and is a vital founding part of who we are today. We should sit down low on benches like a shiva. We should read from the mournful book of Lamentations. And we should consider what it would mean to fast on this day, where that reflection would bring us. And Rabbi James Gibson of Temple Sinai, we identify with the suffering of our people. So the reason to observe Tisha B'Av is not about mourning the temple per se. It is about identifying with the suffering and exile of our people and knowing people suffered because they are Jews. I will observe a fast on Tisha B'Av this year until about midday and take a moment to look at our traditional text of the day, the book of Lamentations. Then, at around 1, I will have my regular meal because I know that Judaism has continued to evolve since this moment of destruction, that the moment of introspection also is a moment of reclamation, that this moment of fasting is also a moment to think of healing as well, that we have a state in Israel, that we have a coming together of the Jewish people, that we have a chance for redemption. Eicha, chapter 3, verse 40 reads, "Let us search and examine our ways, and therefore return to the Eternal One." For Reformed Jews, Tisha B'Av can be both a day of mourning and a day of joy. We mourn the destruction of the temple, but rejoice that we've become strong and resilient and thrive as Jews. Mourning the tragedies of the past leads us to search and examine our way forward and face the future with hope and courage, making this observance a powerful event. Isaiah concludes, "Come now, says the Eternal One, let us reason together. Though your sins be scarlet, they can become white as snow, and I will restore your judges as in the beginning, and your counselors as in the days of old. Then shall you be called righteous city, faithful town. Zion shall be redeemed by justice, and its repentant people by righteousness. Let us build together a religion of righteousness, listening, remembrance, and constant healing." Shabbat Shalom.